Today's podcast episode is an invitation to live your life all out. I always see that motto when I'm working out at Orange Theory, living all out, going all out. And I'm like, what does that truly mean? And so as I unravel today's podcast episode, I think of it in three different ways. Living all out is vulnerably living your life as your true authentic self, not who people think you should be or the way you should be acting or what society deems, oh no, you have to do and act or say or wear or fill in the blank, but just showing up vulnerably as your authentic self while being open to connecting with people and have new experiences with those people, and to listen to your gut. Because when you make decisions in life from your gut and from your heart, it's very, very easy to go all in on the things you do. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Badassery. I'm your host, Christine Lozada. This is a podcast meant to inspire you to be just 1% more badass today than you were yesterday. Our big badass moments in life don't just randomly happen. I wish they did. They're a culmination of all of our small badass moments that lead up to those big ones. And it's hard to have the big ones when you're not regularly practicing with small ones. And so at the time in which this podcast episode is released, I will have spoken on the main stage of an event called Camp Indie. And for those of you who did not attend, are like, what's Camp Indie? It's an adult summer camp. So imagine a 6th grade camp with, the cabins and the water skiing and the archery and the zip lining and like all the fun camp activities. There's a lot of activities, actually, a lot of them. But imagine that, all adults plus alcohol. Alcohol is optional, but alcohol can make things very fun. And it's a get-together of the people who are who identify as travelers and digital nomads, a group called Location Indie that I am very, very fond of, especially the founder, Travis Sherry, which we will talk about in a minute. And Travis had reached out to me asking if I would be one of the 4 main stage speakers during the weekend. And he asked me to actually kick off the conference. Actually, I want to call it a conference. It's not really a conference. Kick off the weekend. And Camp Indie was one of the most important trips I took last year. And we'll uncover some of those stories about why. But when I was thinking about what I want to share with this audience and what I want to give to them, it's really to go all in at Camp Indie, to do the things that I opened this podcast episode with, which is around being vulnerable and authentic and connecting with others and having new experiences, just going all in at camp. And as I was thinking about this message, I'm like, it's not just camp, it's life. When you live life that way, life gets so much better. A lot of people don't know my background. My background is not, most people just think I've been a YouTuber since forever. But I was not a YouTuber since forever. I was not a traveler since forever. I was proudly a square. I was a square. It's a really inaccurate way to talk about it. I was a square that worked in a cubicle, that lived, that I grew up in San Diego. I went to UC Berkeley, graduated in economics, graduated early from college to go start my career at Walmart.com. Worked my way high up in that company. And then after doing merchandising, marketing, and business strategy for them, moved to a city I love just because I wanted to, which is New York City. And I went to go work for a startup that was acquired by Amazon. So I was an Amazon employee. Fast forward, I realized that being a square with my ball and chain in my cubicle sucked because I lived in these amazing, expensive cities. I had a $1.1 million condo in San Francisco at one point, and my mortgage was $4,266 a month, and my HOA was $700. Like, that's just redonkulous, right? And imagine living that lifestyle, but working 12 hours a day and never enjoying the place you live in. Doesn't that sound wonderful? No, that sounds like it sucks. And it also sounds like the 14 days of vacation you have per year, in which really, with all your judgy coworkers, you should really only use 6 of them, maybe 7 tops if you're feeling good about it, and let the rest roll over to next year so that you can eventually cash out on all of those vacation days when you leave the company. Oh God, I just want to barf in my mouth. Anyway, I was a square. That was my old life, and I gave up all of that to become, I eventually went to go work for a company that allowed me to work from anywhere. I was one of the original remote employees. I just needed to be in Michigan for 1 week a month, and otherwise could be anywhere in the world. Was given a $25,000 a year travel budget to fly myself from wherever the heck I was back to Michigan and stay in Michigan for the 1 week a month. Anyway, I did that for 7 years. It was amazing. And I realized traveling and that lifestyle's way better, which is why I left that cushy corporate job and just started becoming a travel YouTuber. All right, now you're caught up on who the heck I am and where I've been. And now fast forward, we are at Camp Indie with a bunch of people who understand this kind of a lifestyle where you travel and you work nonstop and you make a lifestyle out of travel. But it doesn't mean that the way in which you monetize is the same. This is a group of people who make their money in all kinds of different ways. You might be a content creator, a YouTuber, and a drone pilot like I am, but you might be someone else who does admin work or editing work or writes for publications, or fill in the blank, is just allowed the freedom to travel, be anywhere, but make a living while working remotely. And so Camp Indie is a place and a group of people that are very important to me, because finding your community is everything. All right, so let's fast forward. There's kind of 3 key messages I have around going all in on the life that you're living now. Again, life is so much better when you are confident that you're living the life you absolutely love and you just live life all out. I never felt that way until I started making some of the big badass decisions that I made later in life, post Square Christine in the corporate world. And one of the first pieces of advice that I have is to follow your badass heart and allow yourself to connect with people. I was like, yeah, of course. Like, yeah, I want to make new friends, or yeah, I'd love to talk to so-and-so, or yeah, like I'd love to, try to meet some new people. But like, no, like I want you to take it 20 steps further. And when I say follow your badass heart, what's interesting is how not in tune a lot of people are in reading people and understanding how well they connect with people. So I go all out on my relationships. And what I mean by that is when I am meeting someone new, actually when I'm just talking with anyone in general, like I do everything I can to put phone down and I am 100% in it and I'm listening. One of the top things that I learned as a Toastmaster, a lot of people think it's about public speaking. It's about listening. It's about truly understanding and knowing how to listen so that you can position yourself on what it is that you need to say. And when I talk with people, I really try to find the ways that we are similar and how I connect with these people. And I'll give you 3 examples, one which is very recent. One example is around how I met Meatball. Meatball, if you're not aware of who he is, he's my boyfriend, aka DJ Louie G, aka Lou. And when I met him while I was traveling. We were both on a cruise ship. And I saw him at a headphones party, which is a silent disco party. We were both there alone. And I just kept noticing him throughout the night because he knew and could sing along to every obscure hip hop and rap song that I love. And eventually at the end of the night, I went up to him and I just took his headphones off of his head. I'm like, sit down. Like, who are you? And why do you know all the lyrics to my favorite songs? And I got to know him very quickly in that week that we were on that cruise. And my gut told me, wow, Christine, you are totally in love with this guy. That is different as our backgrounds are, I mean, you heard some of my background. He grew up in the Bronx. There were shootings all the time. His mom died when he was a baby. He lost his father when he was, I think, 20 or 21, and basically was by himself, like fending for himself thereafter. He grew up in a very difficult environment. To be honest, if he stayed in that environment, he probably would either be dead in jail or doing drugs, or the latter two. And so we came from different backgrounds, yet at the same time, like, I just knew, because I was listening to my heart. Like, let's just talk about this logically, right? Hey, mom, just call my mom. Hey, mom, I met somebody. Yeah, let me tell you, I met him for a couple days. I think I'm in love with him. He lives in Florida, and he doesn't have a family. No, he didn't go to college. No, like, right? This is bad on paper. Well, who cares? Like, I knew what I felt. And so a month after I met him, I flew out to Florida. At the time I was living in San Francisco, just to see, I don't know, spend a weekend together and see how it goes. Like, are the things that I felt back then, like, are they true? And the way I described that weekend I spent with him in 2018, if I died today or I died when I'm 99, that is the best weekend of my entire life. We had so much fun. And I literally closed down my life in 10 days in San Francisco and moved to Florida. And the rest is history, right? We just celebrated 6 years of being together. He's amazing. But I followed my heart. I didn't let logic come into play. Let's talk about how I met Travis Sherry. I was at a time in which I was testing something, which was, I just, recently became a content creator and a YouTuber, and I really want to connect with people, and I'm going to go attend all the travel conferences. And I think that's a great thing if you go attend some of them and meet people and go all in on a few. I went to all of them. Like, when I say all of them, I mean, I was flying like red eye from Travel Blogger Exchange, TBEX, flying red eye to TravelCon, because they were so back to back. And anyway, I burned out really hard in that process. And I burned out really hard, not only because I was traveling a lot, but going to these travel conferences, and I was really trying to get my foot in the game being a YouTuber, and was taking any project that sounded remotely interesting. I said no to a lot of things, but I said yes to more things than I was capable of doing. And so I got a message from somebody I care a lot about. You might know her, Erica Hackman, now Erica Vervo. Amazing woman, great connector of people. She sends me a message and she goes, "You have to attend WDS." And I was like, "What's WDS?" She's like, "World Domination Summit." And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, what? And I was just so busy and so burned out at that point. And I sent her a message and I was like, "Hey, I'm super busy. Send me 3 lines as to why I should go." And she wrote me back literally just 3 lines, but one of them was around, there's someone that's attending you must connect with, and you must take this chance, which is Travis Sherry's going to be there. And I remember reading this, and I was at that time in a hotel room in the middle of Mississippi on a press trip, and I was pulling an all-nighter because I was behind on projects and was currently creating and traveling on this trip. And I remember reading that and just booking a flight. Can you get this? A flight from South Florida to Portland, Oregon, not even like direct, was $900 to go to this freaking conference. Oh my God. I was like, why is it so freaking expensive? Anyway, did the thing and was like, I'm all in. I'm going to go meet him. And I just, again, right? Try telling someone in 3 sentences what this story was, and they'll be like, that makes 0 sense. Like, not only was that flight expensive, but she didn't know who this is or like why it's important, nor does she know what this freaking conference is. Later, she would realize that he went on to become one of the most important people that she knows in her life. And on that World Domination Summit, she was dressed as a dinosaur, and as dinosaur number 315, she broke a world record and is in the Guinness Book of World Records as most number of people dressed up as a dinosaur in one place. That actually happened. Anyway, follow your badass heart. and allow yourself to connect with people. I'll give one last example, which is for years, I have been pitched by a million places who want me to do group trips with blah, 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 blah. And I met somebody in the hallways of a travel conference, Travel Blogger Exchange, TBEX. And when I was connecting with her, I was just like, wow, Laura is such a badass. And her story is, her story is on this podcast. You can find it in the show notes below. Her story is she wanted to travel, but she had no one to travel with. And she didn't really want to keep traveling alone. So she started a group travel company and has been taking people on not just group trips, but like really unique, intentional ones that takes you off the beaten path and helps you to have a truly unique experience that like really travels in a place. And when she was describing these trips to me, I'm just like, that is so badass what you've created. And now she basically nonstop travels doing these group trips. And it's very, very rewarding for her. And fast forward, I was like, I need to travel with my community. Which, by the way, if you ever want to travel with me, check the show notes. Because we are going on badass adventures together. And I reached out to Laura and was like, we got to do this. I was like, I want to do group trips together. And with very little vision, just went all out on building this with her. And this has been conversations that we've been having over the last 7 days. And we already have 2 dates on the calendar to travel together with a lot of plans for future ones. And I'm very excited about it. I'm going all out on this. And so you've heard these 3 examples of following your badass heart and allowing yourself to truly connect with people. Ask yourself, like the next time you meet someone new, how much attention are you giving them? I give people over 100% of my attention when I am connecting with people. I am listening to them. So many people say like, oh, I have such a hard time remembering names, or haven't we met before? And it's like, no, I know you. Like I'm all in, listening and connecting with you. And I'm also really tuned in. I'm dialed in on how I feel in this conversation. And when you live life, you connect with people from that standpoint, it is very clear to you who is on your team and who is not. Who is your people and who is not. Because I realize I have spent way too much time. Time is precious. Our time is limited on this earth. I've spent too much time with the wrong people, investing my time helping the wrong people. And instead now I tune in to who's right and I give them everything I got. So just think about that, because your time is limited and who you spend your time with greatly affects the person that you are in this world. I'm just so thankful to be out of the corporate world and away from that wet blanket. That's a whole other story. The next one is listening to your badass gut. I recently, going back to my love for Travis Sherry, he did what I'll just call a wellness retreat, a breathwork retreat, if you're familiar with what breathwork is, in partnership with someone I have a lot of respect for, which is Jacob Sokol. And we went to Tepoztlan. Tepoztlan, I pronounced that incorrectly. Tepoztlan is 2 hours south of Mexico City. It is a very sacred and spiritual place. And we went there to do this wellness retreat. And one of the things that really resonated with me, and there's a podcast series where I podcasted daily from that retreat. And one of the podcast episodes that I put out talks about how difficult of a time we have listening to our gut. Our brain gets in the way. Our brain gets in the way. I don't want you to take this lightly. Our brain gets in the way. Like when we start bringing in logic and, let me just rationalize this and blah, 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 it won't always make sense. But if you listen to your gut and you act from that place, you will never be wrong. If you know how to listen to your gut, like think about, I don't know, actually connect with me and tell me your frickin' story if there's a time you truly listened to your gut and it was wrong. I haven't heard a story yet. If anything, it's always like, I wish I would have listened to my intuition. My intuition told me this, but I didn't do it because I thought my way out of it, or I talked myself out of it. Your intuition, your sixth sense, your fill in the blank, your gut is often correct because you are feeling something and you just intuitively know if it's right or wrong. And if you're feeling doubtful as you're hearing me say this, I challenge you, because I think it's because you have not had an opportunity to truly listen to and act on something your gut is telling you. And so I want to give a separate example of half and halves. I think about how important it is to live life all out, because I think about the times, in contrast, of either myself or people I love who I've watched live life half-half. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm not going to leave my corporate job. I'm going to keep one foot in the door while I side hustle and do fill in the blank. For a lot of people, it depends on your financial situation and how much confidence you have in things, and fill in the blank. And maybe that's the right choice for you. But for me, nah, like, I don't want the safety net. Boom, like, cut off the limb. Let's go all out on, and that was me, right? I left the corporate world, just go straight up YouTube. And what was interesting to me in that situation specifically is, I would say, actually that's not true, for like 5 months, I was 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out. And during those months, I could never step fully into my creativity because I was just surrounded by a wet corporate blanket that has like so many rules, and you're not supposed to act that way. You need to talk in a proper way per the email I sent you. Please consider the environment before printing this email, and blah, blah, like all the stupid corporate speak. When people do corporate speak to me now, I'm like, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over the sound of my barfing. Sorry, that's an aside. And so when I had my foot half in, half out, I couldn't fully step into my creativity. Here's another example. During the pandemic, so Meatball has always been a DJ. He has an entertainment company. He has DJs that work under him. He has a million events going out all the time. And during the pandemic, I was trying to convince him to leave his, at the time, corporate job, which is he was a sales manager for a brand. And he had just been doing it for so long and just felt like he needed that security, just quote unquote, just in case. And I was like, not only is that environment not positive for you, but you cannot step into who you want to become as a better business owner with your DJ business, and as somebody who wants to go all in on investments. He does a lot of investing and trading in the stock market. And I'm like, cut it off. Don't have 1 foot in the door and 1 out. Leave it completely. And I mean, in a future episode, I'll let him speak to it for himself, but the summary is, he is, if I say 1,000 times happier and 1,000 times more successful. Actually, here's a perfect example. He just bought a Corvette. We're about to go into a recession, and I drive home from one of my trips. There's a new Corvette in the driveway, and I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of you. You know, you've always wanted to do that. Anyway, he's doing great. He would not be driving a Vet if he was in his old corporate job. So think about the moments in life where you have a tough time going all in on something. Think about decisions that you've made over time, and have they been made from your gut? And when they are made from your gut and you know it's right, what's stopping you from going all in? Have the courage to do it. And what I love about Camp Indie is that it's an environment of people. And actually, I brought Meatball to Camp Indie last year, and the first thing he said to me is, I've never met people like that before. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, I've never met people who aren't like, hey, what's your name? What do you do? You know what I mean? Like the whole like status conversation that I am so very used to having lived in New York City. Like the whole who are you thing. Instead, he was like, these are people who wanted to know what I do, but more importantly, what I want next from life, so that they could figure out how to support him. Like, who do they know, or what ideas do they have, or what advice can they give, or fill in the blank. And so not only going all in, but here's another thing. What are the things your gut is telling you that you should go all in on in life? And go share that. Go tell people. Go be vulnerable and share that with people. Whenever I have an inkling around something I want to do, and once I I sleep on it. I always think about it when I'm in the shower, because when you are in that state of comfort, it's a little bit easier to be confident in choices and decisions. And then the first person I tell when I want to make those ooh, this is kind of a crazy idea, I definitely want to go after it, I'm going all in on this, is I will tell someone who I know will keep me honest, will ask me, how is that going every single time I call her, and will hold me accountable to reaching success. And so who are those people for you that support you? For me, that's my sister, to help support and encourage you to get it. Go all in. Listen to your gut. And when you have that thing that you want, tell people. Tell the people that support you and have them hold you accountable to doing the thing. And the last one that I wanted to share is around showing up. Show up as your badass self. And I have 2 stories in here. The first part of this is, and you can check out this podcast episode around the badassery wall that's on this podcast series. But the question I ask when I have guests on this podcast is, are you a badass? Why or why not? And the summary of that podcast episode is basically, most people don't think they're a badass, or if they do, most people have a hard time owning up to it. And so the way I think about it is, the world does not benefit when you hide your badassery. And what I mean by that is, the person you show up in the world, if you are owning, I think about, Julia, she's an example. Julia Sokol, she's on this podcast episode. She has a dance studio called SAS. She's a confident woman. When she is in the room, when she's in the space, she holds a presence. You are in the presence of a badass when Julia's in the room. I think it's really freaking cool. But when she shows up like that, it's not only felt by others, but she's got it. And if you can show up as your badass self and just own it, you will come off with a different energy and a different aura. And I am a big, big believer in energy. The energy you put out to the world is the energy you bring back. Think about moments when I've had a really bad day and I am just all negative vibes. And this does happen sometimes. I mean, I had a lot of really bad days in Mexico, having safety issues with the cartel. And it was on this day where I was just so freaking over it and fed up and I want to get the F out of here. And that was the day I crashed my drone. I was just all negative vibes and I knew I was putting out that energy to the world, and I knew I needed to get out of there ASAP, which I did, which was fantastic. I'm never going back to Tulum, Mexico. That's a whole other story. But I also think about the days where I am just on fire. I think about who I want to show up as every time I go to different things. When I go to Camp Indie, I am so excited to connect with people, to meet people, to hear other stories, to bounce ideas off of people, to get an inspiration around how people live their lives, where they travel to. I'm just so excited. And when you come at it from that energy and standpoint, it's really hard either to let negative people affect you, and it's really easy to get other people who are on your level to come hang out with you. And I realized once I fully stepped away from the corporate world and I allow myself to be the silly, weird, crazy mofo that I am, I just attract better people and better energy, and I am just surrounded by the right people all the time. I especially feel that way, not only as a creator and when I'm traveling, but also when I'm on the pickleball court. Who you show up as to play will affect who wants to play with you and what kind of games you have. It's a reflection of what the rest of life is like. Show up as your badass self. And if you are questioning, like, I'm not Christine, I'm not really a badass, go listen to that other podcast episode, because we will go through an exercise in which you will own up to it. You might not be ready to admit you're a badass now, but you will after that episode. And if you already know it, then great. Go listen to it and celebrate your badassery by creating your badassery wall. We all need to celebrate each other, but most importantly, we must celebrate ourselves. It's why in that Mexico podcast series, I have one about why I drink champagne every day. It's not just, I mean, I love champagne. Oh, I just started drooling a little bit. Last night I was drinking Brut Rosé by Bel Air. Fantastic. So dry. So good. Such small bubbles. I digress. I drink champagne every day because it's raising a glass. It is a showing of gratitude for the life that I live. I'm not just thankful for the life that I've chosen and the life that I've built. I want to live it in a way that I celebrate it every day. Drinking champagne every day is a celebration of the life that I have and a showing of how effing thankful I am for it every day. Oh, you should drink champagne every day. Highly recommend it. I have a list of affordable bubbles that I recommend. Ooh, another one. Oh, Mumm Blanc de Blanc. So delicious. And most people pronounce it Mumm, M-U-M-M. Not G-H Mumm, it's a different one. Just M-U-M-M, California Winery. They have a sparkling wine that is a Blanc de Blanc. It is so dry, fantastic, great appetizer champagne. Just drink it alone. I digress. Let's recap what you heard today. So when I go to Camp Indie, I'm going to be sharing these stories around listening to your gut, showing up as your badass self, and following your badass heart, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and connect with people. I want to talk about showing up really quick before we close this out, because I had this conversation with somebody who I otherwise would never have become friends with. And I will eventually have him on this podcast. And he's someone who's very special to me. His name is Bruce. Bruce is old AF. Bruce is probably like late 70s. We play pickleball together. He's very good. Oh, I love him. And he and I were talking about the importance of showing up. Too often in life, and especially in when I talked about social media and how we just will all watch each other all the time, and somehow like all these random people seem like they got it all, living their best life. How did they get that? Wow, that person went viral and it was their success was handed to them and now life is easy and blah 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 blah. And it's like, well, if there's something that you want in life, you got to show up. Too often we spend a lot of time thinking or watching others or dreaming about what we want, but what are you actively doing to go get it? And Bruce and I were talking about as simple as pickleball. He and I were both there. I mean, we're both there a lot, but one time we were there on a night where the weather was not the best. And it was a Friday night, so in theory, people have lives. Bruce and I don't really have lives. So we went to the pickleball court. I didn't know he was going that night. And we were about to start playing. And I said, Bruce, I didn't know who was going to come tonight. And not that many people came, but I'm so glad you're here. And I'm having so much fun playing together. I told him that. Because I also am very vocal with how I feel about things. Because I want people to know, like, I'm really enjoying this time I'm spending with you. And he turned and he said to me, Christine, you just got to show up. He was like, I was considering not showing up tonight, but I just showed up. And he looks at me and he goes, and I show up not just for who's playing pickleball tonight. I show up every day. He talks about how old he is, and he talks about how every day is just such a gift. And he's going to show up that day as the best Bruce there is, We might show up and have a really shitty pickleball game and like play really poorly, but we're still going to have a great time. We're going to show up and we're going to be there. And I think about that in other aspects of our life, especially in aspects of our lives where we want something. And I recently was reconnecting with a friend who is like spitting all these amazing dreams that she has. And for me, I'm listening and trying to actively think about how I can help and what I can do to support her or who I can connect her with. And, I asked her, I was like, what, tell me, like, what are some of the things you're doing to like, get that? That's amazing. What are you doing to get it? Like, how are you putting things in motion? And it was just like, no, like nothing. I was like, what? Like, what do you mean you're not doing anything? Like, why don't you, and I was talking about just attending something that would help her network with other like people. And it was this whole thing of like, no, I don't know what that will be like. And I'm like, show up. Like, just show up. Just go. Like, just, what do you have to lose? You got to show up. Not just for the actions you need to take for your dreams, but just in life in general. And so whatever you are doing today, show up. Show up vulnerably. That means you are in a place where you are not necessarily feeling super confident or secure. Show up vulnerably as your true and authentic self. And be open to who you might connect with. I connected with Bruce. He's this old Jewish white guy that I love. And he's funny AF. We play pickleball together. But I showed up vulnerably as my authentic self, and I connected with him. Go connect with people and have new experiences. And as you are connecting with people, really tune in, dial in, and listen to your heart and listen to your gut, and voice the dreams that you have and go all in on them and the life that you have now, because tomorrow is not guaranteed, and the life that you and I are living right now is the only time that we will be living the life that we are living right now. You got one shot at this one. Make it your best. If you felt something in today's podcast episode, please leave a positive review, share it with somebody who might need to hear it, and tell me. I am at Christine Lozada everywhere. Go forth, be badass, come travel with me, go to Camp Indie, something. Check the show notes below, and I'll see ya in the next adventure. Ciao.